So let's continue the determination of residential status. Like in the previous session, we have completed the scope of total income, and what we understood is if a person is a resident or resident and ordinarily resident, global income is taxable whether the source is in India or outside India, receipt in India or outside India, doesn't matter. Global income is taxable. Whereas for a non-resident, in order to tax him, either source must be in India in respect of that income, or receipt must be in India to tax a particular income. If both are outside, if source and receipt, nothing but accrual is outside, receipt is outside, then it is not taxable for a non-resident. Further, in case of resident and but not ordinarily resident, he is a resident but not ordinarily resident. What we understood is, for him also it is same like non-resident. Only one income in addition to non-resident that is taxable for RNOR is if it is a business or profession set up outside India but controlled from India. In case of business, set up from India. In case of profession, then it is taxable in addition to what is taxable for a non-resident. So this is the impact of the residential status on taxability of a particular income based upon source rule or receipt rule. So this we understood in the previous session. Now let's understand how to determine this residential status. Whether a person is a resident or non-resident, how to determine that? Section 6 is the one which is dealing with the entire this residential status. Section 6 of the Act deals with residential status. Especially with respect to individuals, these three sections are dealing. 6 subsection 1, 1A and subsection 6. Whereas for HUF also we have the concept of residential status, firms, AOP, BOI we have, companies we have, and any other person also we have the concept of determining residential status. Now let us look for individuals, how to determine residential status. Now, I told you in the previous session that in every country, worldwide, any country you take, they first of all classify any taxpayer or any person either as a resident or non-resident before they talk about taxing a particular income. First they classify them into either resident or non-resident. On what basis they classify? I told you, based on number of days that they stay. If a person is staying in a particular country for so and so number of days, if it exceeds so and so number of days as per the law of that country, then he is treated as a resident. If at all the number of days, the period of stay is less than so and so number of days, then he is not treated as a resident. So this is what we thought. Same in India also. We have a section for individuals. We have a section for individuals, which is section 6 subsection 1, which talks about physical presence in India. What is it? It talks about physical presence in India. If a particular person has stayed, has resided, has physically present in India for certain number of days, then he is a resident. Otherwise, he is a non-resident. This is what original section. But there is a Finance Act 2020 which has brought a new provision, which is taxing even though physical presence is not exist in India. Even though physical presence is not existing in India, suppose if the individual is not stayed at all, he didn't even visit one day, still he is treated as a resident. He is treated as a resident. First time probably I can say the Indian government has brought a tax law to tax an individual who do not even visit India. Who do not even. By the way, there is a one particular thing. Under this section, this provision is applicable only for Indian citizens. This provision is applicable only for Indian citizens. For others, this is not applicable. So, Indian income tax law has brought a new provision, section 6, clause 1A. It's actually clause under section 6. Many refer it as subsection, but no, they're actually clauses, because 6 clause 1 talks about one thing, 6 clause 1 here talks about deemed resident, 6 clause 2 talks about HUF firms, partnership companies, all that. Each one is dealing with a different concept. Getting it? So where each of these items do not have interrelationship with others, so you can call it as what? A clause. Getting it? So 6 clause 1A, by introducing 6 clause 1A, Indian government is taxing an individual by treating him as a resident. Getting it? Even though physically he is not present in India. Now, when a person becomes a non-resident, see, I have not yet entered into the actual section. I'm only giving you a brief overview. Getting it? When a person is treated as a non-resident, very simple. He do not come under 6 clause 1. An individual do not fall under 1A. Both 6 clause 1, 6 clause 1A, both will not apply for an individual. An individual did not satisfy the condition prescribed under 6 clause 1 and 6 clause 1A. He is treated as a non-resident now. Earlier, what you know, before Finance Act 2020, before 1/4/2021, what is the picture, you know? If a person do not satisfy 6 clause 1, he is a non-resident straight away. But now, if a person do not satisfy 6 clause 1, we should additionally check 6 clause 1A, whether that person is coming under 6 clause 1A. If that is also not there, then he is straight away treated as non-resident. Able to understand? So that's the basic overview about individual residential status. Now let us understand what is exactly 6 clause 1, what conditions 6 clause 1 says, what conditions 6 clause 1A says. Okay, now if you recollect the previous session, I told you for an SSA who is an individual or an SSA who is an HUF, an individual or HUF, for them we have two classifications, mainly resident and non-resident. This residential status, this resident itself is again we have classified into ordinarily resident, not ordinarily resident. Only for individual and HUF, totally we are having 3 classifications. So let us stick with individual. So an individual is having totally 3 classifications. Either he can be ROR, resident and ordinarily resident. Second one, resident, not ordinarily resident. He is a resident, but ordinarily he is not a resident, and non-resident. So 3 classifications we have. Getting it? Now, how to determine when an individual is treated as simply a resident? When an individual is simply treated as a resident, how do we know whether he is an ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident? So first of all, we need to understand, is he a resident? Basic residential status we call it as. What do we call it as? Basic residential status. 6th clause 1. This clause talks about basic residential status of an individual. Whether he is an ordinarily resident or not, then 6 clause 6 we need to check. Whether an individual is an ordinarily resident, 6 clause 6 we need to check. If a person satisfies 6 clause 1, yes, he is a resident basically. Now, is he ordinarily resident? Check 6 clause 6. If 6 clause 6 also applies, then he is a ordinarily resident. Otherwise, don't conclude. 6 clause 1A we need to check. If that is applicable, again resident. If not, then he is straight away non-resident. When a person is classified as non-resident, 6 clause 1 should not apply. 6 clause 1A should not apply. You know, there is a relationship between 6 clause 1 and 6 clause 6. I told you, right? 6 clause 6 dealing with what? Resident and ordinarily resident, or resident but not ordinarily resident. Whereas 6 clause 1 talks about simply residential status. Only if an individual satisfies 6 clause 1. Only if an individual satisfies basic conditions. We call it as what? Basic conditions. 6 clause 1 is dealing with 2 basic conditions. It is dealing with what? 2 basic conditions. If any of these basic conditions, if any one of these basic conditions is satisfied, then only we will check 6 clause 6. What 6 clause 6 talks about? Additional conditions. What is it talking about? Additional conditions. If at all, an individual do not satisfy 6 clause 1. He did not satisfy 6 clause 1 at all. He is not satisfying 6 clause 1, any of the 2 basic conditions, both are failed. Then we don't even check one additional condition. We don't check it all. Getting it? So this is how we proceed. Now let us look at what are the basic conditions and what are the additional conditions, how this entire law has been drafted. Getting it? Now, first, basic determination of residential status of an individual. How to determine residential status of an individual? Getting it? Now, when I say individual, He may be Indian citizen or foreign citizen, doesn't matter. I am determining residential status. Some, random person came and asked me, sir, should I have to pay tax in India? First, I need to decide, is he a resident or non-resident? First, I need to decide. So I will ask certain questions. Basic condition 1. What is it? Basic condition 1. So there are two basic conditions, basic condition 1 and basic condition 2. If any one enough. If basic condition 1 is satisfied, no need to check BC2. If basic condition 1 is not satisfied, then we need to check basic condition 2. Are you getting it? Now, let us learn step by step. Basic condition 1, what it says. If an individual stays in India, what is it? Stays in India for a period of 182 days. For a period of 182 days or more. Minimum, what is the stay? 182 days or more. So either 182 days or more than 182 days. Getting it? In India, obviously, if an individual stays in India for a period of 182 days or more in the relevant previous year. What is it? In the relevant previous year. What do you mean by relevant previous year? Relevant previous year means, suppose right now the date is July 4th week 2023. Getting it? A person came and sitting before me, let's assume, so he wants to file IT return, he wants to pay tax. Now this year I am paying tax means which year income? Previous year income. What is previous year? 22-23 is the previous year. So now for the financial year, for the previous year 22-23, in that year, if at all the person is staying for 182 days or more, if a person is staying for 182 days or more in the previous year 22-23, he is a resident. What is he? He is a resident. Basic condition 1 is satisfied. So relevant year only will check. We don't check that before year, later year, this year, no need. Whether he is staying in India or not in the assessment year doesn't matter. Getting it? In the previous year, 182 days you stayed. For that year, you are a resident. That year income, whatever you are getting, you have to pay tax to the Indian economy. Of course, you are paying in the next year. That is assessment year. It doesn't matter. In the assessment year, whether you stay or not doesn't matter. What is important is stay in the relevant previous year is important. So in the relevant previous year, basic condition 1 says what? If the individual stays in India for 182 days or more in the relevant previous year, that's it, he is a resident. Suppose if this condition is not satisfied, if basic condition 1 is not satisfied, then come and check basic condition 2. Don't declare, don't say that is a non-resident. No. Basic condition 1 not satisfied. We have another condition to be checked. Okay, let us check another condition which is little relaxed condition. Is he staying? Suppose if the individual stays 60 days or more. What is it? 60 days or more in relevant previous year. What is it? 60 days or more he stayed in the relevant previous year. And there is another subcondition. There is another subcondition in the basic condition 2. There are two subparts. Getting it? In the relevant previous year, just 60 days enough. In this year, have you been in India for 60 days? Just 2 months have you stayed in India? Enough. And 365 days or more in past 4 previous years preceding. What is it? Preceding relevant previous year. If at all an individual stayed in India, resided in India, physically present in India for 60 days or more in the current year, nothing but the relevant year we are talking about, and minimum 365 days or more than that in the past 4 preceding years. Suppose I am talking about which year? 20-23 previous year. I am talking about which year? Previous year 20-23. In this year, how many days he should stay? 60 days. First of all, as per basic condition 1, how many days he should stay? Minimum 180 days. Now there is a question for many students. Sir, should the physically present stay in India? No, it should be continuous. No, need not be. Suppose you came India, you visited India for 25 days, you stayed, and again left. Again you came, another 25 days you stayed, again left. Again you came after 10 days, another 25 days you stayed, again left. Again you came after 10 or 15 days, again you stayed some 50, 60 days. Like that we see totally in this particular financial year. So within 1st April 22 to 31st March 23, within this financial year, how many days you stayed in India? If the total number of days comes to 182 or more, basic condition 1 satisfied, you are straight away resident. No need to check basic condition 2. If at all 182 days criteria is not satisfied, then we will check the second criteria. What is that second criteria? Have you stayed for at least 60 days? 2 months enough? Yes. And have you stayed in the past 4 years? What do you mean by past 4 years? 21, 22, 20, 21, 19, 20, 18, 19. When I say previous year 20 to 23, these are the past 4 years. If the year is different, then years also will change. In these 4 years put together, when you came, when you left, when you came back, when you left, doesn't matter. In these 4 years put together, as per your passport, if total number of days are 365 days or more, if total number of days are 365 days or more, 60 days in the relevant year, 365 days or more in the past 4 previous years preceding relevant previous year, then also we call him as resident. Then also we call him as what? Resident. Suppose if a person do not satisfy B1, okay, then we will check B2, basic condition 2. B2 means basic condition 2. Okay, if B2 is also not satisfied, don't immediately conclude. Getting it? Generally, if B1 and B2 both are failed, no, then he is straight away, sorry, don't confuse. Then we will have to go and check 61A. Sir, what is 61A? We'll discuss. So then we have to check 61A. If 61A is also not satisfied, then he is straight away non-resident. Are you clear? Until now. Now, there is a condition. What is basic condition 1? 182 days, more than or equal to 182 days in relevant previous year. So what is basic condition 2? Or more than or equal to 60 days in relevant previous year plus 365, more than or equal to 365 days in 4 previous years preceding relevant previous year. Yes or no? Now, there is an explanation. 6 clause 1 has an explanation. What that explanation says is, many think that it is an exception or a provision. No, it's not an exception. There is an explanation. For B2, I will show you the act also, don't worry. For B2 condition, there is an explanation. What that explanation says is, suppose if that individual is an Indian citizen, if such individual is an Indian citizen, if the individual is an Indian citizen, suppose he is leaving India for employment. Suppose if that individual is leaving India for employment, he's actually an Indian citizen. Okay, now he is leaving the country in this year 20 to 23 financial year only. He is leaving exactly in the relevant previous year 20 to 23. He is leaving the country and going for employment. Remember, employment means not just job as an employee. Employment means anything. Suppose you want to start a business in outside India, you just want to start a business in Germany and you left India, that is also treated as employment. Employment means what? For some work. Employment means work. First of all, understand. Okay, suppose he is leaving India for employment, or getting it, he is a crew member. He is working as a crew member in a particular ship which is actually foreign bound ship. So he is working as a crew member in a particular ship. He is working as a crew. Crew means what? Anybody working in the ship is a crew. We call them as, see, if at all anybody working in my office, we call them as staff members. Staff means general word. So what is their role? Not required. Staff means that is they're working. Crew means what? They're working in the ship. So we simply call them as crew member. Getting in movies also you have something called crew and cast. Cast means those who are appearing on the screen. Crew means what? Director, everybody, they all come under crew. Getting it? Fine. Crew means those who are working inside that particular ship. If at all a person, an individual is an Indian citizen He is leaving India for employment. One case, case number 1. Case number 2, he is working as a crew member. Case number 3, suppose if the fellow is an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin, if they are visiting India, what is it? If they are visiting India, remember case number 1, they are leaving India. Case number 2, he is an Indian citizen working in a particular ship as a crew member. Case number 3, he is an Indian citizen or Indian origin. Indian origin means what, you know? By the way, Indian citizen means we have a Citizenship Act which is there in 1957 or 60 something. So as per that, whoever is citizen of India, there is a definition. So whoever satisfies the definition, he is an Indian citizen. What do you mean by Indian origin? If a person is born outside India, he is not a citizen, but his parents were born in India or his grandparents were born in India. He is a person having Indian origin. For him, where is the root? India. So Indian origin, we call him this. So an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin, if at all he is visiting India, visiting means what? Obviously temporarily. He is not coming here for permanent settlement. He is just visiting India. Getting it? For him, that is case number 3. So an Indian citizen or Indian origin visiting India is case number 3. Indian citizen leaving India, case number 1. Indian citizen working in a ship, case number 2. So what is this case number 1, 2, 3? In these 3 cases, to determine their residential status, we only check basic condition 1. So what do you mean by that? For these 3 cases of individuals who are Indian citizens or who are Indian citizen or Indian origin, getting it? For these 3 cases, we do not apply basic condition 2. Remember, we do not apply basic condition 2. We don't apply. So let me once again repeat. Basic condition on what it says. If an individual physically present in India, stayed in India for 182 days or more in the relevant previous year, that's a tick, resident. Not satisfied, then come and check basic condition 2. What is basic condition 2, which says if at all he is in the relevant previous year for at least 60 days. And in the past 4 years before RPY, 365 or more than 365 days he stayed, then basic condition 2 satisfied. Now what am I saying? There are 3 cases. Indian citizen leaving India for employment, Indian citizen working in a ship as a crew member, Indian citizen or person of Indian origin actually not there in India. He is visiting India now temporarily. Getting it? Whether he is visiting India temporarily or not, on the passport you can find it. Don't worry. Getting it? Visiting in India. For these 3 cases of individuals, basic condition 2 will not apply. We only check basic condition 1. We only check what? Basic condition 1. We check only basic condition 1 for these 3 cases. Suppose in these 3 cases, 182 days criteria not satisfied. What is it? 182 days criteria not satisfied. Straight away, go and check 61A. 61A also not satisfied. 6 clause 1A, deemed resident provision. Straight away non-resident. Straight away, what is it? Non-resident. Until now, are you clear? Don't confuse. There is still more provision. One by one, I'm just, bringing it to your attention. Have you understood until now? Now, there is an amendment in the Finance Act 2020. It was almost 3 years ago. 2 years ago, the amendment was. Now, I told, right, case number 3. What is case number 3? Indian citizen or person of Indian origin. Indian citizen or person of Indian origin visiting India. What is it? Person of Indian origin or an Indian citizen visiting India. For him, what I told you, for him only basic condition will apply, right? For him only basic condition will apply, right? This is what I told, right? Now for him, basic condition 2 also will apply. Actually, what I told just before, basic condition 2 do not apply. But for this case 3 alone, basic condition 2 will apply with a modification. Basic condition 2 will apply with a modification. What is it? With a modification. What is that modification, sir? If this fellow, what is this? Indian citizen or person of Indian origin, he is visiting India. If this particular individual, if he is having more than or equal to 15 lakhs Indian income. What is it? If this fellow is having more than or equal to 15 lakhs Indian income, first what point we should check? This fellow is having more than or equal to 15 lakhs Indian income. What is Indian income other than foreign sources? What is it? Other than foreign sources. What do you mean by foreign source? If the income is deemed to accrue or arise in the foreign, getting the point, outside India, then it's a foreign income. Which means this income is what? Indian income. It is treated as Indian income, or it is received in India, or it is, accrued in India, or it is deemed to accrue in India. If this person is having 15 lakhs or more Indian income, then check this criteria. If he stays for more than or equal to 120 days in relevant previous year, what is it? More than or equal to 120 days in relevant previous year, and more than or equal to 365 days in past 4 years, then again he is classified as a resident. Sir, slightly confusing, I know. Very simple. Individual, just a random individual you select. Condition 1 you apply. Just for yourself you apply. Have you stayed in India during 22-23 financial year for more than 180 days or more? Sir, I am in India only, sir. Completely 365 days. That's it, you are a resident. If basic condition 1 not satisfied, then come to basic condition 2. What is basic condition 2? In the relevant previous year, 60 days if we stayed, at least 60, means 60 or more than 60. And 365 days or more in the past 4 years before the relevant year, then also he is resident. Now, this second condition will not apply in 3 cases. Generally, this basic condition 2 will not apply in 3 cases. What are the 3 cases? Case number 1. If a person is leaving India, first of all is an Indian citizen, he is leaving India for employment. He is leaving India not for tourist purpose. If at all a person is leaving India based on tourist visa, then that person will not come under this exception. Remember, case number 1 is for what? If a person is leaving India based on employment visa. Able to understand? Based on the visa, passport will have that visa related, entire data. Getting it? Case number 2, if at all he is a crew member in an Indian, in a particular ship, working in a ship. Or case number 3, he is an Indian citizen or Indian origin, is just visiting in India. Generally in all these three cases, basic condition 2 will not apply. If basic condition 2 do not apply, only 182 days criteria we will check. If we check 182 days criteria, he is a resident. If he does not satisfy 182 days criteria, he is a non-resident. No. 61A has to be checked. Then if it is not satisfied, then he is a non-resident. I hope you are clear. 61A I have not yet discussed. Let me discuss later. Don't worry. Okay. So if B1 and B2 both are not satisfied, then only we will go and check 61A. If any one is satisfied, 61A we don't even check. If any one is satisfied, is a resident. No. If is already a resident, why we will check B6 clause 1A? Anyhow, I'll discuss that at that particular section. Until now, very clear. Now, for case number 3, what is it? For case number 3, an Indian origin or a person of Indian citizen visiting India, there is one exception added. Normally, basic condition 2, 60 days or more, 365 days or more, do not apply for case 1, case 2, case 3. For this itself, there is one more exception. Exception to exception means what? Applicability. For him, what are they saying? Suppose, if that fellow is an Indian citizen, person of Indian origin, if he is having minimum 15 lakhs Indian income. How much Indian income? Minimum 15 lakhs. Source of income is in India. I don't think receipt is covered. Only source is covered. If the income is accrue or arise in India, only that is covered. Getting it? So if source is in India, 15 lakh or more source in India, and he stayed in India for 120 days or more. He stayed in India for 120 days or more in the current relevant previous year and 365 days or more in the past 4 previous years. Then also he is a resident. Are you getting the point? So that's it. This is what individual residential status. Clear? Now let us look at each and every case by reading the original provision. First of all, what is residential status? The incidence of tax on any SSE depends upon the residential status under the Act. For the purpose of income tax, these taxpayers are classified into three broad categories under Indian law: resident and ordinarily resident, resident but not ordinarily resident, and non-resident. The residential status of an SSC must be ascertained with reference to each previous year. Obviously, for every year we should calculate residential status. Sir, a person is a resident in 1 year. Is he resident forever? No. For every year we need to check. Remember, residential status is different from citizenship. I told you, residential status is there in India, there in America, there in Ukraine, there in Russia, there in China, there in Japan. Everywhere it is there. Getting it? So a person who is resident and ordinarily resident in 1 year may become non-resident in another year, or may become not ordinarily resident in another year. Who knows? So now let's look at residential status of an individual clearly. So now let's look at residential status of individual clearly. Now, basic criteria for residential status. First one, we should check basic criteria. We also call it as basic condition. An individual is said to be resident. An individual is said to be resident in any previous year. Whatever the previous year we are checking, for that year he is said to be resident. When, if any one I told you of the following condition is satisfied. First one, basic condition 1 or basic criteria 1. What is it? He has been in India during the previous year. You can add the word relevant. For more clarity, you can add the word relevant. During the relevant previous year for a total period of 182 days or more. Even if he is there for 182 days, that is enough. If at all, basic condition 1 not satisfied, then what we should check? Basic condition 2. What is basic condition 2? He has been in India for at least 4 years. Like in the 4 years, he must be there for 365 days or more. He has been in India during the 4 years immediately preceding the relevant year for 365 days or more, and at least 60 days in the relevant previous year. At least 60 days in the relevant previous year. If at all he stayed for at least 60 days in India during that year and 365 or more in the past 4 years, then also he is a resident. So if an individual satisfies any one of the above conditions, he is a resident. If both the above conditions are not satisfied, generally people conclude that he is a non-resident. But what I will tell you, don't conclude. Apply 6-1A also. If 6-1A also do not apply, then only conclude him as non-resident. Don't straight away decide him as non-resident based on basic condition 1, basic condition 2. You should also check which one. 6 clause 1A, deemed resident provision is there. Once upon a time, before 6-1A introduction, if B1, B2 both are not applicable, non-resident. But after 6-1A provision, we should also check 6-1A additionally. Getting it? What is 6-1A? We'll discuss later. Now there is an explanation. As per explanation 1, there are 3 cases: case 1, case 2, and case 3. In these three cases, basic condition 2. What is basic condition 2? 60 days or more during relevant year. 365 days or more during the past 4 years. This point we will not apply. So what is this? For the following categories of individuals, the residential status will be treated. He is treated as resident in India only if the period of stay is 182 days or more. In other words, even if that person is in India for 60 days or more, 365 days or more in the past 4 years, still we don't consider. Who are these persons? He is an Indian citizen. You see, in all the 3 points, Indian citizen is common. Leaving India during the relevant year as a member of crew of an Indian ship. For foreign bound destination. It's an Indian ship only, getting it, but working on the cross board, getting international, journeys, getting it, voyage. We call it as what? Voyage. VOYAGE, getting it. Or an Indian citizen who leaves India during the relevant year for the purpose of employment outside. Remember, employment means people don't conclude it as only job, employee. No, employment means for some work. Even if you are going for business purpose, it's called employment. Getting it? You're leaving India for employment. You're leaving. So you want to do business there or you want to do job outside. Temporarily you go visit, you go there and come back. No, that is not again treated as employment visit. Getting it? Or third case, Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin or a person of Indian origin, he's an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin, being outside India, he normally stays outside India, comes on a visit. What is it? He's coming to India on a visit during the relevant year. So this is case number 3. Getting it? When we are discussing in the original, in the notes, we discussed this as case number 2, this as case number 1, whereas in the book it is given ulta. It's okay, not an issue. Case number 3 is constant. That is what important for us. So if an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin who stays generally outside India, visiting India, getting NRS, we call them as NRS visiting India, no? Getting it? For them also, 60 days logic we don't apply. Very simple, ma. Many of your relatives, or you might have seen, some of your relatives are working abroad, but they come once in a year, once in 2 years India, and they stay for 3-4 months continuously. If you apply 60 days logic, very easy. They can easily satisfy. There are many who are working in Abu Dhabi, Gulf region and all. Getting it? They come every year, yearly once they come and stay for some 100 days here. So every year, 100 days, if at all they are staying, they will satisfy basic condition 2. They may become ordinarily resident. For them, global income might be taxable. Able to understand? So, they are coming to India for a visit to spend time with the family and working hard outside India for earning the money, and you are taxing him. So, in order to give relief, these exceptions were given. If at all you are an Indian citizen, but settled abroad, you're visiting India temporarily, we don't apply small basic conditions. 60 days logic, we don't apply. Getting it? Simply, in all the above 3 cases, only 182 days shall be considered and not 60 days in basic condition 2. Hope you're clear. Why basic condition 2 was given relaxation? I hope you're clear. Getting it? Now, this heading, I mentioned it as exception to exception. Exception to exception for which case? Only for Indian citizen or Indian origin visiting India. Those who are visiting India, no, for them, there is one particular rule has been added. What is it? Suppose, if a person is an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin, please write here, visiting India. What is it? Please mention that, visiting India. Getting it? And having total income. What is it? Having total income. Which income? Other than income from foreign sources. It should not be foreign source based. It should be Indian source. So where source of income is in India, if that income is 15 lakhs or more, if that income is exceeding 15 lakhs, means it should be more than 15 lakhs, not 15 lakhs, more than 15 lakhs. If that income is exceeding 15 lakhs, Indian income is exceeding 15 lakhs, getting it? He will be treated as resident. If any one of the following criteria is satisfied. So I redrafted the entire provision. One is anyhow 182 days logic. Basic condition 1, 182 days logic. If it is satisfied, anyhow is a resident. How basic condition 2 is changed, There 160 days logic is there, no? That has been changed as 120 days. That 60 days logic is changed as 120. 60 plus 365 do not apply for him. But which will apply 120 plus 365 days. 120 plus 365 days. That logic will apply. Provided this will be applied for whom? Only for Indian citizen or person of Indian origin visiting India having 15 lakhs plus Indian income. I hope you are getting. Just a minute. Yes. Sorry for the disturbance. Actually, I just went for a while. Yeah. So, what is it? Very simple. If a person is an individual, basic condition we will check. What is basic condition 1? Where we will check 182 days or more in the relevant year. If at all he stayed in relevant year for 182 days or more, he is a resident. Suppose it is not satisfied. Then we will come back and check basic condition 2. What is basic condition 2? 60 days or more is enough in the relevant year. And 365 days or more in the past 4 years. Then also is a resident. Basic condition 2 is also not satisfied. Then we will have to go and check 61A. That is also not satisfied. He is a non-resident. Now, basic condition 2, no, very easy, no. Anybody, whoever is visiting India for 70 days, 80 days, many tourists, no, they come to India for 70, 80 days easily. They just come for a visit. Many NRIs were there who are settled abroad. They just come and stay easily 120 days, 130 days. Getting it? Now, in order to relax, getting it? Basic condition 2 is not applicable for 3 cases. Case number 1, a person who is Indian citizen, he is leaving India for employment. Case number 2 is an Indian citizen working in an Indian ship as a crew member which is traveling on international traffic. What is that? I will discuss later. Case number 3. There are some NRIs who are Indian citizens having Indian origin, settled outside India, but visiting India temporarily. For them also basic condition 2 is exempt. 60 days logic will not apply. Now, Finance Act 2020 made an amendment. What they're saying, you know, if at all any NRI, Indian citizen, Indian origin, who settled abroad but regularly visits India, getting income from India for more than 15 lakhs. They're getting income from India for more than 15 lakhs. Who are they? They settled abroad, but they're actual Indian citizens, Indian origin people, settled abroad, but getting Indian income for more than 15 lakhs. They're purchasing properties, earning so much outside, purchasing properties in India, getting rental incomes, getting so and so incomes easily, getting more than 15 lakhs. Indian Income Tax Department wanted to bring them. They want to bring them under residential status category. So what they did? For them, they defined a new basic condition 2. For them, they defined a new basic condition 2. For whom? Indian citizen, Indian origin, settled abroad, visiting India. Having more than 15 lakhs income. Remember, this condition is most important. Having more than 15 lakhs total income, that to Indian source, not foreign source. Getting it? If they stayed for 120 days or more, what is it? 120 days or more, and in the past 4 years, 365 days, then also they're resident. What is it? Then also they're resident. Now tell me, if at all he's an Indian citizen, Indian origin, settled outside, coming to India, for him, 60 days logic will apply? No. 120 days logic will apply? Yes. What is the condition? More than 15 lakhs Indian income should be there. Then 120 days logic will apply. I hope you are clear. So very simple. So let us put it in a diagrammatic manner. So first what we will check, basic condition 1. What is basic condition 1? More than or equal to 182 days. Then he is a resident. If basic condition 1 fails, then what we will apply? Basic condition 2. What is basic condition 2? More than or equal to 60 days in relevant previous year plus more than or equal to 365 days in past 4 years. So 60 days or more in the relevant year, more than or equal to 365 days in the past 4 years. Getting it? Then he is a resident. Suppose if this also fails, let us see whether, by the way, basic condition 2 do not apply for which cases? Case 1, leaving India. Case number 2, crew member. By the way, here it is Indian citizen. Case number 3, Indian citizen or person of Indian origin visiting India. So for these 3 cases, B2 will not apply. But for this case 3 people who is having more than 15 lakhs Indian income, what is Indian income? The source is in India. These people are having substantial income in India. More than 15 lakhs they are getting. Source in India. For them, if they stayed for 120 days, more than or equal to 120 days in relevant previous year, more than or equal to 365 days in past 4 years, again they are treated as resident. See, originally they said B2 do not apply. Now again, what they said, more than 15 lakhs income, put 120 days, tax them. So this is the 6 clause 1 residential status. What is this? 6 clause 1 residential status. I hope you are clear. Now, okay, sir, we understood B1 or B2 or exception to B2, case 1, case 2, case 3, and for case 3, 120 days logic. By doing all this, we can understand whether they are a resident or not, an individual. Now, you told in the previous session something called ordinarily resident, not ordinarily resident. Something called ordinarily resident, not ordinarily. What does it mean? What is that? This is covered under 6 clause 6. As per that, there are 2 conditions, A1 and A2. What are they? There are 2 conditions, A1 and A2. And the relationship between them is and. Don't directly look at the material. First look at this, then I will cover in the material. So A1, what it says, if first of all, by the way, when do we come to 6 clause 6? Only if 6 clause 1 is satisfied. Only if 6 clause 1 is applicable, then we come to 6 clause 6. Suppose if at all 6 clause 1A is satisfied, 6 clause 1A it is covered. No need to come to 6 clause 6. Only an individual who satisfied 6 clause 1, somehow he became a resident. Then come back and check, 6 clause 6. Getting it? Now don't think we have little more thing to cover. There is 1 or 2 points. I told case 3 120 days logic. No, for him also 6 clause 6 do not apply. Suppose if a person is Indian origin, Indian citizen, he is visiting India, having 15 lakhs plus total income in India. So Indian source. For him 120 days logic we apply. No, if at all an individual become resident because of this 120 days logic, 6 clause 6 we will not check. He is just a resident but not ordinarily resident. He is just a resident but not ordinarily resident. Suppose if a person satisfies B1 or B2, either B1 or B2, any of these two. B2 means what? 60 days logic. B1 means what? 180 days logic. If a person satisfies any of these two conditions, then he is a resident. Then come and check 6 clause 6. What is 6 clause 6? A1, what it says? Additional condition. He must be resident. The individual must be resident in past 2 years. In past 2 years. By the way, in past any 2 years. In the past any 2 years. Out of 10 previous years. Out of past 10 years for any 2 years. Preceding relevant previous year. This fellow must be resident in the past for any 2 years. For any 2 years out of 10 previous years. Out of 10 previous years preceding relevant year. So preceding the relevant year, out of any 10 previous years, he must be a resident. Now by the way, so how he can be a resident? Either B1 satisfied resident or B2 satisfied resident. Either B1 satisfied resident or B2 satisfied resident. Getting it? Out of past 10, any one satisfied is just a resident. And remember, it's not or, and another condition to be satisfied. He must stay more than or equal to 730 days. He must stay minimum 730 days in the past 7 years. In the past 7 years preceding previous year, preceding relevant previous year. Whatever 20 to 23 year is there, right? Ignore that. Before 7 years, 730 days he must be in India. If both these conditions are satisfied, if both of these conditions are satisfied, then that fellow is treated as resident and ordinarily resident. Resident and ordinarily. Now you see, let us decode the term ordinarily resident. So if you check basic condition, no, you see basic condition, one observation. In basic condition, it is talking about 180 days in the relevant year, 60 days in the relevant year, 120 days in the relevant year. Whereas additional condition 1, additional condition 2, you see, they are not talking about current year stay. They are talking about past year stay. A1 talks about in the past 10 years, 2 years you must be resident. A2 says in the past 7 years, 730 days you must stay. They are not talking about current year. So what is it? Resident and ordinarily resident means what? He is a resident in current year. What about past? Ordinarily also is a resident. He is a resident in current year. Ordinarily also is a resident. What is resident, not ordinarily resident? Suppose no, if A1 or A2, any one condition, any one failed, any one condition failed. Getting the point? Any one condition failed. He is straight away resident, but not ordinarily resident. He stays in India current year, resident. In the past, no, not ordinarily resident. This year is a resident, not ordinarily resident. Ordinarily he is not a resident. This year only is a resident. In past also he is staying. What do we say? He is a resident this year. Ordinary also he is a resident. That's the logic behind A1, A2, B1, B2. Able to understand. So, out of past 10 years, for any 2 years, he is a resident. Either B1 or B2, any of this is satisfied, then he is a resident. Getting it? Then, A2 also we should check. In the past 7 years, 730 days minimum he should stay. That's it. So, this is how we decide ROR. Now tell me, let us conclude. Suppose an individual satisfied B1 or an individual satisfied B2. Getting it? Any one satisfied. Then we will come and check A1 plus A2. Both are satisfied. Then straight away, what do we call him as? Resident and ordinarily resident. So what is B1? What is B2? Everything you know. Suppose there are some cases where B2 will not apply. Case 1, case 2, case 3, a person who is an Indian citizen leaving India, a person who is an Indian citizen working as a crew in an Indian ship, a person who is an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin visiting India on a temporary basis. Getting it? For them B2 will not apply. Only we will check B1. Then we will check A1 plus A2. Both satisfied ROR. Suppose a person satisfied either B1 or B2 and either A1 or A2, either any one failed, one failed enough. Getting it? RNOR. Suppose a person he did not satisfy B1. Getting it? But for B2, he falls under case 3. What is case 3? Indian origin, Indian citizen visiting India. He's an Indian origin, Indian citizen visiting India. For him, how we apply? 120 days logic will apply plus 365 days in the past 4 years. If this is satisfied, he is what again? Resident. Now for him, do we apply A1 and A2 logic? Not at all. We don't even check. Only if a person satisfy 182 criteria, 60-day criteria condition, only if any of these two satisfied, then only we will come A1 and A2. Otherwise, we will not check A1 and A2. Suppose if a person becomes a resident in clause 6, if a person becomes resident in section 6 clause number 1 because of 120 days logic, 15 lakhs more than 15 lakhs income logic, then we don't even check additional conditions. We simply call him as, we simply call that NRI. Getting it? We simply call him as resident, but not ordinarily resident. So when I say an individual is just a resident, he's just a resident. Is he ordinarily resident? No. When he is ordinarily resident, we should specifically tell he is a resident and ordinarily resident. Tell me, what is the impact of ordinarily resident? No, sir, okay, sir, ROR, RNOR, NR, all that is fine. Now 120 days, 365 days logic is there? No. Because of this logic, that fellow is becoming resident? No. Just because of this 120 days logic, having Indian income more than 15 lakhs, he is becoming resident? No. What is the benefit that Indian government gets, sir? Very simple. If a person is RNOR, what additionally can be taxed? If at all he is a non-resident, source must be in India or receipt must be in India. Only then we can tax. But RNOR, what else we can tax? We can tax business income. We can tax profession income, which is outside India, but it is controlled from India, but it is set up from India. We can tax that income also. That is the impact of RNOR. I already told about 61A introduction class. Just in this particular video, at the introduction, I clearly, mentioned. Getting it? I hope you're clear. So this is determination of residential status of an individual. Okay, that's it. 1 minute. So that's it. I hope you are clear. Now let us read the provision. Okay. So now what is this point? If an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin having total income other than income from foreign sources, that is income which accrue or arise outside India, except from a business controlled or profession set up in India. I told no. Business controlled from India or profession set up from India, that income we will consider because that is treated as Indian income. And which is not deemed to accrue or arise in India. What is foreign income? It is not something deemed to be accrued in India. It is not Indian income. It is foreign income. But if it is a business or profession controlled from India or set up from India, that we will consider in 15 lakhs computation. So 15 lakhs computation, what are all we will consider? Source is in India, consider. If it is a business or profession outside but controlled from India, consider. So what is considered in 15 lakhs? So source of income, accrual in India, deemed to accrue in India, or accrual is outside but it is controlled from India because of a business, because of a profession, then also considered in the 15 lakhs limit. Getting it? Now he will be treated as resident when 182 days criteria, that is anyhow normal. B2, you see, 120 days is substituted. 60 days is changed in B2 to what? 120 days. That's the only change. Now, if a person becomes a resident because of this B2 condition, if a person becomes a resident because of this B2 condition and the 15 lakhs criteria and the B2 condition, getting it? 120 days condition. For this fellow, additional condition 1, additional condition 2, nothing but 6 clause 6 we will not check. Ordinarily residential status we will not check. We will straight away classify him as RNOR. Again, I'll be taking a revision class, right? So probably in the next month, I'll be uploading revision class. At the time, I will even revise them very quickly. Now, since it's a original class, regular class, we will be discussing little in depth. Now, additional conditions. What are the additional conditions? Only individuals and HUFs can be resident, but not ordinarily resident. Correct? No, he can be resident, but not ordinarily. All other cases of SSEs, only two categories we have. I told you in the previous session. Generally for companies, firms and all, either resident or non-resident. Now, who is not ordinarily resident? Who is not ordinarily resident? He is a person who satisfies any one. Now, immediately when you see here, there are 4 criteria. Whereas when I'm explaining in the notes, I told you 2 additional conditions, both has to be satisfied. Whereas here you see 4 criteria is there and they are saying any one condition. This is drafted negatively. Let us discuss this and understand and sync with our notes. If such individual is a non-resident in India, out of 9, for any 9 out of 10 years, out of past 10, 9 years you must be non-resident. Then you are not ordinarily resident. Then what? You are not ordinarily resident. When you will be ordinarily resident? Out of past 10, 9 you should be non-resident. Means if at all you are resident for any 2 means what? 8 only, 9 not satisfied. For any 2 years if you become resident, you become ordinarily resident. Correct? For out of past 10, 9 you must be non-resident, minimum 9. Okay, then only you are not ordinary, then only you are RN1. So if I have to become ROR, if I just become 2 times resident, 9 will not come. No, for non-resident, 2 times if I am a resident, 8 only non-resident. At least 2 times if I become a resident, I naturally come into ROR. Able to understand? Or if during the past 7 years, you are in India for 729 days or less, then only you are RNOR. Then only you are RNOR. You see, if you are 729 days or less, then you are RNOR, which means if you are 730 days or more, you become ROR. You become what? ROR. Getting it? Now, if any one of these 2, you see here, if any one, if any either A, B, any one, if you fail any one, that's enough. You are a RNOR. If you want to become ROR, both has to be failed. Getting it? So which means you must be there in India for 2 years out of past 10 as a resident. And 730 days or more you must be in India in the past 7 years. Not only that, when you will become RNOR by default, when you will become RNOR, suppose if you are an individual, Indian citizen or person of Indian origin, getting it? You are visiting to India. And having total income exceeding 15 lakhs Indian sources, including business controlled or profession set up in India, but it's outside, but it is controlled from India. That is also treated as Indian source. Okay. And you are there for 120 days. You are there in India for how many days? 120 days, but less than 182 days. You are also treated as what? RNOR. And if you are an individual, you are deemed to be resident in India under 618. Suppose if you are treated as resident under 618, actually you are a non-resident. As per 6 clause 1, you are a non-resident. But if you become a resident under 6 clause 1A, 6 clause 6 we will not apply. You will never become ordinarily resident. You are straight away treated as not ordinarily resident. What is it? Not ordinarily resident. So when you are always treated as RNOR, point number 1, 9 years out of 10 years you are a non-resident in the past. You stayed for less than or equal to 729 days in the past 7 years. Or you became a resident because of this 120 days logic, 15 lakhs income logic. Or you are a deemed resident. You are a deemed resident under 6 clause 1A. Getting it? In all these cases, what happens? You are simply RNOR. When you will become ROR, original B1, original B2, any of these 2 is satisfied. And for 2 out of 10 previous years, you become a resident. Plus 730 days or more in the past 7 years, you become a resident. Then also you are treated as a resident. Are you getting it? Then also you are treated as a resident. Getting it? this can be framed in a different way. Whatever this provision is there, right? This I can frame in a different way. Getting it? I can say, four additional conditions. We discussed, two additional, right? Let us classify this as four. A person who became a resident under 6 clause 1, a person who became a resident under 6 clause 1 will become resident and ordinarily resident if he is satisfying 4 additional conditions: A1, A2, A3, A4. What is A1? 2 years he must be resident out of 10 previous years. A2, 730 days or more. 730 days or more. He must stay in India out of 7 years. 7 years. And don't apply. He is not resident. He is not a, I'm not saying non-resident. He is not a resident because of this 120 days logic. He is not a resident because of 120 days logic, or he is not a resident because of 61A logic. He is not a resident because of 61A logic. He is not a resident because of 120 days logic. He has been in India for 730 days or more in the past 7 years. He has been a resident for 2 years out of past 10 years. If all these 4 conditions are satisfied, then also is a resident. The same I drafted in a negative way. I drafted in a different way, which is more easier way. When you are always R&OR, past 10 years, 9 years, you are a non-resident, and now also R&OR. Because out of past 9 years, you are not a resident. So how come you are ordinarily resident? You are resident only for this year, not ordinarily. Ordinarily in the past, you are not a resident, because out of 9 years, you are a non-resident. If at least 2 years you are a resident, no, I would have considered as ordinarily you are a resident. Another case, when you are always R&OR, in the past 7 years, you stayed hardly 729 days or less than 729. So ordinarily you are not a resident. Only this year you are a resident. What is case number 3? Where you are always R&OR, you are a non-resident. But since you are having more than 15 lakhs Indian income, and you stayed in India for more than 120 days in the current year, I will call you just a resident. Normally you are a non-resident, but because you are having major Indian income more than 15 lakhs from Indian sources, from business or profession, control from India, you are having more than 15 lakhs and you stayed for 120, only for that reason I am considering you as a resident. Normally you are not a resident, or you have not at all stayed in India. You have not at all stayed in India. You are just a resident because of 61A. You are a deemed resident. You are not a original resident. You are not staying in India. You are a deemed resident. Able to understand? In all these cases, I just consider you as a resident, but not ordinarily resident. I will upload this video onto the YouTube channel also. Getting it? So this is going to be my last free video on the YouTube, probably, I can say. Okay, with respect to income tax, as I'm launching this tax newly. So just this is one of the one section where many students confuse. So if at all you're watching on the application or the website Google Drive mode, view is limited, right? Don't worry. If at all you're having doubt, once again go to the my caramharsha, just type caramharsha residential status, you will find this video. Getting it? So there you can watch it once again thoroughly and happily. You can digest. That's it. Clear now? Now let us solve certain problems. Certain illustrations we will solve. 1, 2, 3. We will solve whatever is possible. Actually, we have to discuss crew member related provision. We should discuss crew member related provision. Okay. So what do you mean by stay within India? 24 hours should we consider, or 12 hours should we consider in order to calculate stay in India? What do you mean by days? All that we will discuss later. So let us see whether it is possible to discuss or not. Now question number 1. Question number 1 itself is something that we didn't discuss. I think this we can discuss. You see here, there is a cricketer, Brett Lee. Okay, he's an Australian cricket player. He visits India for 100 days in every year. Remember, Brett Lee is not Indian citizen. By looking at the word and the phrases, you should figure out he is not Indian citizen. He is not a person of Indian origin. Okay. He is not an Indian citizen. He is not a person of Indian origin. We don't apply B2. Remember, we don't apply B2 condition. Even we don't apply that 120 days logic condition also. Remember that. So he visits every year 100 days. This is a practice for the past 10 years. Okay. Question number 1. Find out residential status for the assessment year 20 to 23. Means relevant previous year is what? 22, 23. Relevant previous year is 22, 23. Now, so let us write the answer straight away. So how you should write the answer? Getting it? So now point number 1. How we should write always? Let us do one thing. Relevant provision. Relevant provision. Remember, many students don't write, especially if a theory question comes. So many complain that we can't remember, we can't write. They write sometimes correct answer, but they don't score full because they are not writing complete answers. Getting it? So now you remember here he's just a foreign citizen. Getting it? But anyhow, we should write the entire provision. But here, depending upon the marks, suppose if the question came for 4 marks only, getting it? You just write basic conditions and leave. Suppose if the question came for 6 marks, means they're expecting you to write in-depth answer, means additional conditions also you should write. Getting it? So, an individual, just a minute. An individual is treated as a resident if such individual satisfies any one of the following conditions. In our classroom purpose only we discussed basic, additional. You don't write in exam like this. Okay, any one, you can mention that any one of the following. Okay, first point, what is it? If such individual stayed in India for a period of 182 days or more in the relevant previous year. In exam you should write full forms. Okay, and by the way, remember, you should also underline the words, underline the keywords. That is also important. Getting it? Any one of the following condition: stayed in India 182 days or more in the relevant previous year. Getting it? Now, or what is the second condition? Okay, present in India. You can also write present in India, physically present in India for 60 days or more in relevant previous year and 365 days or more in 4 years preceding relevant previous year. That's it. Only these two is enough. Getting it? You calculate normally. You calculate. Let us do. See, right now we are discussing the answer presentation. Let us basically calculate. Now, how many days he stayed? Basic condition 1. Let us calculate roughly. Is he stayed for 180 days in the current year? No. Basic condition 2. Is he stayed for more than 60 years? 100. Is he stayed for in the past 4 years more than 365? Yes. Past 4, every year 100. So 400. So basic condition 2 satisfied. He is a resident. Now, additional condition. 730 days in the past 7 years. Only 700 days. So not satisfied. Additional condition. So he is just a resident but not ordinarily resident. So why should we write additional conditions? So how I will write, you see. How I will write, you see. So this is a relevant provision. Getting it? Suppose if the question is for 6 marks, then we should continue. Further, an individual becomes ordinarily resident. Further, an individual becomes an ordinarily resident. An ordinarily resident if such individual satisfies the both. If such individual satisfies the following both additional conditions, or you can simply write following both conditions, both the conditions. So what is condition number 1? Stays in India for 730 days or more, 730 days or more in past 7 years before relevant previous year. I'm just skipping. Okay, I hope you understood by writing the first phrase itself how to write in exam in depth. And you should write and second one, being a resident a resident for at least, for how many? Minimum 2 years out of 10 years preceding relevant previous year. So analysis and conclusion. So what is the analysis and conclusion? In the given case, Brett Lee is a resident. Brett Lee is a resident, but not ordinarily resident, because he stayed in India for 100 days in, relevant previous year, within bracket more than or equal to 60 days, and 400 days in past 4 years, within bracket more than or equal to 365 days. Yes or no? Full stop. However, he stayed in India for less than 730 days in past 7 years. So by mentioning this, however, we are indirectly confirming the examiner that additional condition also I checked, but he did not satisfy. Therefore, he is just a resident, but not ordinary. So therefore, you need to write conclusion clearly. Therefore, Mr. Brett Lee is a just a minute. Yeah, is a resident, but not ordinarily resident. You should write full forms in exam. That's it. I hope you are clear. That's it. Now, so you can see the answer. Here we have given clearly. See, you can even put a table like this and present in exam. You will get, decently very good marks. So period of stay during the current year, 100 days. And period of stay during the past 4 years. So the calculator. Mr. Brett Lee is in India for more than 60 days and more than 365 days in the past 4 years. Therefore, since one of the basic condition is satisfied, he is a resident. This is suggested answer in the ICA. Computation of period of stay for 7 years. So for 7 years, actually it is 700 days. Sorry. So 700 days. So since it is less than 730, he is not ordinarily resident. Therefore, Mr. Brett Lee is a resident but not ordinarily resident. So that is the question number A. Question number B. What would be your answer if the above facts related to Mr. Srinath, an Indian citizen who resides in Australia and represents the Australian? Suppose if an Indian citizen, what is the answer? The answer is going to be same. Sorry. If he's an Indian citizen, B2 condition do not apply. Yes or no? If B2 condition do not apply, straight away Srinath is what? Srinath is straight away non-resident. Sir, 15 lakhs income, 120 days criteria, that is not given. No. So mention in the note. Assume that anyhow he is less than 120 days. No. So no need to even bother about that 120 days logic. You see case number 3. What would be your answer if Srinath has visited for 120 days in the current year? Current year 120 days. Here you see, if Srinath has visited for current year 120 days, in the past year more than 365, in the past 4. Getting it? And having more than 15 lakhs Indian source based income. Getting the point? And in such a case, he is treated as resident. Getting it? By the way, yeah, you see, suppose in case if Srinath total income exceeds 15 lakhs, he is a resident but not ordinary resident, because he stayed in India for 120 days and 400 days in the past 4 years. More than 365, nothing but. If his total income is not exceeding 15 lakhs, which total income? Indian source total income, nothing but excluding foreign income, then he is a non-resident. You see how clearly they are presenting. Whenever you're solving, you solve on your own, see the answer. Don't just check and verify. Read the entire answer. When you read entire answer along with provision, what happens is you develop that vocabulary more strongly. Getting it? So with this, one of the tough provision, that is determination of residential status of individual, is completed. Technically it is completed. Actually, illustration 3 is also we have. Let us cover illustration 3 also. So in the next video, I will talk about crew member 1 circular, and illustration 1 we will solve. With that, residential status of individual is completed. By the way, 1A is also there. So 1A also I will cover in the next class, next particular lecture. Illustration 3, what is it? Mr. B is a Canadian citizen, comes to India for the first time during 1819 year. He came for India 1819 for the first time. So in 1819 he stayed for 55 days. 1920 he stayed for 60 days. 2021 90 days. 21-22 150. 22-23 70. Determine the residential status for the 20-23. 20-23 70 days he stayed. No. B2 condition. B1 in 182. not satisfied. So 70 days he stayed no more than 60 plus. In the past 4 years, 365 condition should be satisfied. Past 4 years means what? 150. Past 4 years I'll highlight with the green color. 150, 90, 60, 55. How much it is? Getting it? 150, 90, 240 plus a 60 plus a 55. Array 355 only. Less than 365. Basic condition 2 not satisfied. He's a foreign citizen, not Indian citizen. So straight away. Getting it? He is a non-resident. He is a non-resident. Remember, basic condition 2 will not apply for whom? Indian citizen leaving India. Indian citizen working as a crew. Indian citizen visiting India. Only for them basic condition 2 we will not apply. For everybody else, foreign citizen, everybody we will apply basic condition 2. I hope you are clear on these illustrations and the provision which we discussed. Getting it? In the next session, once again I'll summarize this for 2-3 minutes. Then I will start 6.1a. Then we will discuss about the true member related circular CBDT notification. Okay, that's it. Carry on. Continue with the next session. I'll be happy if you reply on Telegram to me, or you put it as a comment on the YouTube how you felt about this particular session. Getting it? That's it. Carry on.